Yeah, what do you think about student loan forgiveness?
I support a 100% full Jubilee style debt forgiveness. All student loans, maybe even going back 5 or 10, some amount of arbitrary units of people who've already paid them off and paying them back too. If right after that fact, you can bankrupt out of them.
You could bankrupt out of them after the fact.
Yeah.
So,
So no, I mean, like, after the Jubilee happens, from that point
right.
forward, student loans are bankruptable.
Okay. So that
Because
fixes the problem after that. So that would
well,
fix the problem.
I hope it fixes the problem. There's some people who even think that the university should be punished, which I don't think is a bad idea either. But I mean, I think the conservative side has this completely ass backwards. I mean, first of all, they don't understand economics at all. Not that the left understands it either, but
They
they
don't.
misunderstand
They
they
don't.
misunderstand different aspects of it, right? But so with the
Okay.
student loan crisis that we're seeing is a result of the child who grows up and gets the student loan, goes to school. His entire life he's told, go to school, get good grades, and you'll succeed. You should succeed in society. You graduate from high school, you're 18, your brain is literally not fully formed yet, because your brain isn't fully formed until you're like 25, right? And then there's nobody doesn't get student aid,
No,
right?
nobody does it.
You ask for it, you get it. You take on
Unless
these
you smoke
loans.
marijuana and then you get arrested and then you don't get student aid.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that. But if so you get the student aid, and then you go to college, and then when you go to college, there's no direction. There's no, like, hey, you better go to a STEM field, otherwise all this stuff is just a joke, right? Even stuff that's traditionally academically sound, like say history or philosophy or something like that, that'll get you nowhere. And that's to say nothing about women's studies or gender studies or whatever. And so you graduate multiple tens of thousands of dollars in debt on the low end. You get hit with an interest rate this about 8%, which in business terms 8% isn't that bad, but in useless terms, when you're saying, okay, I just took on an 8% load of $30,000, $40,000, and I don't have any realistic means of really assaulting the principal on this, and then turn around and say, okay, you can't bankrupt out of it. And then it's been a while since I've seen articles like this, but I was starting to see articles in certain states where, like, they'll take your driver's license away if you get late on your student loans. This is a modern form of debt slavery.
It is. And also, they'll garnish your wages. And one time when I was just in between college, like I thought about my student loans because I had to pay my rent. And so my student loans were enormous and I hadn't gone back to school because I was working. And so my student loans came into effect. I was like, I can't even afford to go back to school right now because I have to keep working. So I'm just not going to pay my student loans. The instant
They
that
garnish your
I decided
wages.
to do that, they garnished my wages. I couldn't even. They froze my credit cards. They froze my credit cards too.
Yeah.
I couldn't even
Okay.
buy a
Yeah.
sandwich at Walmart.
I mean, these are just more and more examples of, we will remove your ability to interact with society like everybody else if you don't pay these things,
Yeah,
right? So I believe, from a moral standpoint, the Jubilee is justified as a motherfucking apology.
yeah.
We're sorry, most productive generation that currently exists right now, for
Woo-hoo.
lying to you about this bullshit,
I mean,
right?
I agree with you, bro. So,
And I was thinking about it more because there's the inflation concern, right? And I don't want to poo-poo the concept of inflation, because if the money inflates and you can't afford what you could afford the day before, that's a real issue. However, the damage has already been done if you think about how the system works, right? Because with the banking system, if I take out a loan, which is technically the wrong verbiage, if money gets created for a reason, because that's all a loan is money creation. The money gets created at that moment, and as I pay back the principal, the money actually gets destroyed. It's weird if you're not used to the idea, right? So if I borrow $100 from Bank Tommy, Bank Tommy has actually created the money out of nothing, lends me the $100, as I pay the $100 back, the principal just annihilates itself in banking ledgers. Now, Tommy gets to keep the interest, and that's his profit, right?
Right.
What that means is all this money that has been loaned out, or this money that has been created for these student loans, has already gone out there. Meaning, whatever inflation, or if that even causes inflation, right? Whatever that has occurred has already occurred, and if the debt gets forgiven, it's already out there. The damage has already been done. Right. I guess you could make the argument that repaying the loans is deflationary, right? To say, okay, it's removing money out of the system, but that's fucking stupid. Like if there's a reason for not doing it, because I mean, this is when I say the most productive generation, I mean it's generation in their 20s and their 30s that's supposed to be out there like maintaining society and building civilization and stuff like that. Right. If you put them into debt slavery, they're going to be less productive. And if they're less productive, that's going to be way more inflationary than whatever money that you created. Because when you create money, but you also create goods and services, well, you don't have any inflation because the number of things to buy went up with the amount of money to buy. Right.
So the establishment would disagree with you, though, because they own, of course, the companies and the corporations, and then you end up going to Walmart and you spending your money, and then they have those subsidies, and then they end up getting tax breaks.
I would even say this: who fucking gives a shit if it inflates? Okay, let's say I'm completely wrong about all that stuff. Who cares if it inflates anything, right? The government. I mean, how much money has been spent sending weapons to Ukraine, and that so far that has probably 90% just gone into Zelensky's pocket or fucking something like that. Right?
Oh my God! You hate Ukraine.
How much money has just been shipped over there? Like, is it enough to have paid off the entire student debt at this point?
Oh my God,
right?
Bro.
So I mean, like the government is regularly spending into existence trillions of dollars on world-destroying bullshit. So do it for something productive.
I don't want to pay your loans, though. Your gender studies degree. It's always a gender studies degree with the right wing, bro. They don't like drag queens. They don't like gender studies degrees.
I don't like drag queens, and I don't like gender studies degrees. So I mean, I see their point on that. However, but
that's how they get people like you.
That point isn't nearly as strong as you brainwashed and tricked these children into accepting debt slavery for nothing.
If everybody who's watching this now or recording could like, share, and subscribe it helps us out a lot.
Yeah.
I hate saying it, but it's just true.